See, I know the movie The Perfect Storm is one of my favorites. It's been around a long time, but that one looks like the special effects are even better. I'm geeking out. I can't wait to see that. But the thing is the sea, as you can see, is not a friendly place. So yeah, of course you don't want to look here. My computer. And we're just going to not do sermon notes today because it's stupid. Okay, at least. Okay, put it back. It's not the end of the world. But the movie The Perfect Storm sure cured my need to get on a boat and sail the sea. And, you know, one day I'll do that, but that's when the kingdom comes and the ocean is like one giant lake. And there's no more storm, it says in the book of Revelation. I'm looking forward to that. But you can see travel, if you think it's hazardous today, imagine if you had to go everywhere on ship. That would just be nuts, right? And Paul, he had sailed a lot in his lifetime. The guy had guts to take the word of the Lord. Any place you had to, a lot of times there was no roads and you'd have to sail there. And here's Paul, and we talk about him a lot. As we wrap up the book of Acts today, you'll see, when you read Acts 27, 28 on your own, this is the icing on the cake for a guy whose life has just been brutal. As he has gone across the world, beaten, sometimes not even for preaching, just being in the city. I wasn't even doing anything, you guys, and they'd arrest him and whip him because he just represented Jesus Christ. He didn't even preach sometimes. Like, he went to Jerusalem, and they arrested him, and he didn't even preach. It's just his reputation. They put him in prison for 2 years. He used that to our advantage and wrote a lot of the New Testament we have. He won, Philippians says, he won over some of his captors to Christ. In a nutshell, going to Jerusalem instead of going to safety was crazy, but he did it anyway because the Lord told him to. And his friend Luke, who wrote the book of Acts that we've been going through, does a fine job of bringing us a detailed account of what happened to Paul. And you can see the Bible's trustworthiness in the small details. Do you remember what John read? Luke mentions that the water was 120 feet deep and then 90 feet deep. And there was 276 of us on the boat. You could tell the guy was on the boat going, we're going to die. I better write this down for my family to see what happens to us. Right? And he was with Paul. They dropped 4 anchors. The details are there. This is a historical account by a guy who was in the thick of it with Paul. And in this story that John read today, there are some things about our hero Paul that sticks out to me. And verse 20 is one of them. It says, when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally all gave up hope. Can you imagine 14 days in a storm? Even Luke writes down, we gave up hope. Here's the guy journaling this whole thing. We're going to die. There's no hope. Right? Is this not the state of the world that we live in now? Do you feel that way when you watch the news and you talk to your friends and you see how they just live for Saturday night so they can numb the hopelessness? That's why they do it. They're trying to deal with that. What the movie The Matrix says is just that sense that something's wrong. And they can't escape it. And they've given up hope of being saved. A lot of them have. I talk to them every day. This is a potent verse. It's the state of the earth. And the calm Christian, like Paul, whose hope-filled is in short supply. The steady, positive, solid, assured person who has their life situated on the rock of Jesus is a rare person. Because all Christians these days are doing is watching the news. Getting caught up in Facebook, swirling whirlwinds of the end of the world stuff. And they're not reading the hope. And they get caught up in it too. And then all it's just doom and gloom. Do you know that a negative Christian is an oxymoron? You know, my sins are forgiven, I'm going to live forever. Boy, am I bummed out. Right? We catastrophize every little thing we see on the news. We forget forget that all this stuff's been happening throughout all history. It's just today, we hear about it 20 minutes after it happens. Because of TV and internet and Twitter and Facebook and everything. So don't make it your ideal to be one of those people. We got to try and be more like Paul. It's not just by trying to do it, but it's Paul had the character he had because he knew Jesus. And he knew him well. Even though he had had a horrible life in so many ways, he knew he was on the winning team. The reason, Paul said, is evident why the ship's in the storm. And you know, the world is a shipwreck. And people think by electing a new prime minister or a new president, you know, I just get a kick out of talking to Republican Christians and Democratic Christians that I know in the States. Because now, in a year and a half, it's not going to be Obama's head on the internet with devil horns coming out of his face that the Christians put on there. It'll be Hillary Clinton or whoever wins the Republican, if that's what happens. But you know what? No politician can help fix the shipwreck. Everybody thought George W. was going to be the guy because he's a Christian. I use the internet. I've been on the Google. But you know, James Dobson even had George W. as the answer to America's woes. He's going to end abortion and fix things. And all W. did was get sucked into 9/11 and then create wars and whatever. And I'm not talking about the politics of it, but I'm saying he showed us what is true about any politician, any earthly hero. They can't fix the ship. It's going down, baby. But you're going to survive the shipwreck. That's what this passage is about. Because Jesus is with you in the storm. Now the reason is, Paul says, you know, if you just listen to my advice and not sail to Crete, you wouldn't be in this mess. I'm not telling you I told you so, but I told you so. God told me it's going to be a big storm. And you know what? People do that. They blame God for the storm they're in, the storm that the continent's in, but it's not God's fault. Right? We're the ones that ignored the map and say, you know what? I'm going to flirt with the storm. I'm going to flirt with that affair. That girl at work. I'm going to flirt with porn. I'm going to flirt with alcohol and drug use. I'm going to flirt with it because, you know, I can handle it. And God's like, can you now? No, we get stuck in these storms. And a lot of them are our own making, and that's the advice of God is clear as a bell. Paul said, don't sail to Crete, there's a storm, and it's clear as a bell, but we do this. No, God, I got this. Do you now? So what we got to do now is not judge people for being in the storm. That is the wrong thing to do. Because God breaks, his heart breaks for people caught in the storm. The Bible says in John 3:17, right after the most famous verse in the Bible, John 3:16, for God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save it. Right? So our job is to be like him and not condemn the world, but to then get into the storm like Paul was with those guys on the ship and start throwing life preservers out and hope. That's our job. Don't judge the world. Let that happen on its own for the people that do not want God's help, and eventually they're going to face the music on their own. That's not your responsibility. Paul says over and over again, don't judge, leave that to God. Just go get as many as you can and save them. So Paul reminds us that God doesn't take pleasure in the death of the wicked, but with their sin, he will not strive, because eventually their sin is going to run them into the rocks, but they're not there yet. There's no hopeless cases, even in the middle of a storm. You see that ship on that trailer broken in half? Crazy. That's a true story. I can't wait to see it. It's not hopeless. The ship may be in half and it's eventually going to go down, but there's hope. So be that hope bearer, right? Be that hope bearer in the world. And Paul says, okay guys, we're in this situation now. Let's not go back and talk about how we shouldn't have done this. What to do in the storm, okay? And this is for us today. Being a Christian in a shipwreck. Paul says, okay, I'm close to God. I know his word, and we've got his word. We've got to get that into us. Spurgeon said, make sure you got Bibline blood in you. So you got the hope in you when the hard times come. He said, God told me Don't be afraid. Keep your courage. God told Paul, I'm going to give you safely the lives of all those guys, the 275 guys you're with on the boat. I'm going to save them. So tell them what to do. Paul says, I know you're in a storm, the ship's going down, but there's hope. Keep your courage, have faith. Okay? If you trust God to save you, not one of you will be lost. Verse 22. But I urge you to keep your courage. Okay? Not one of you will be lost. Even though the ship's going down. Doesn't mean it's going to destroy you. But you're going to have to do something totally counterintuitive. You're going to have to trust God to save you. And man doesn't like that. No. We got to figure it out. We got to elect the new guy. We got to figure out a new policy. We got to get a new safety policy for kids. So they can't do that thing that one kid cracked his head open doing. Like there's all these things we got to do to fix the world. But Paul says you can't fix this ship. You got to trust God to save you. It's the only way. Yeah, but I can do this and this. You're just patching a hole, and there's 50 others on the other side of the boat. Don't. Just listen to God now, okay? Christians in the storm have something to offer people. Don't give up. See, they're exhausted. They're exhausted. It says, for 2 weeks these people are in suspense. And Paul says, look, don't attempt to escape in one of those puny little lifeboats. You saw what happened to that lifeboat in that trailer, right, when they lowered it? Some guys wanted to get in that boat and go to safety. What happened to the lifeboat? Smashed to smithereens. They're saying, like, stay together. Stay with the ship. We live together, we die together. And so the human intuition is to run and react and get in that lifeboat, and I'm going to handle this myself. Paul says, guys, if you want to live, you got to stick with me. You got to stick with me. And then Paul says, stay with the ship, and that's totally counterintuitive, isn't it? Because you just want to fix it yourself. I know a friend. We were in a car accident. The car's going over the cliff. It's an embankment. People have fight or flight syndrome. This friend leapt from the car. I would have been like in the seatbelt, like, this is it. I'm just going down. But they leapt from the car, and then the car turned and hit them. And she's like the bionic woman now. She's significant damage, but obviously a fighter. Like, I'm not going down with this ship. But she's not, right? The thing is, Paul says, I'm representing Jesus. You got to stick with Jesus, and He'll save you. And Paul does something for them. He says, look, you guys, you haven't eaten. Probably they're seasick. They're worn out from suspense. They're stressed. They don't feel like eating. Paul's like, I urge you to take some food. And in the middle of a storm, a Christian offers the bread of life to people. That's what Christians do. They don't slap them. They say, here, this is the bread of life. It will sustain you. You need this to survive. He's Jesus. And Paul gives these guys grain. And Paul, he comes and helps these guys because they're exhausted. He says, come and eat with me. Don't give up. Jesus is the only one that can give people sustenance to carry on. I've seen this. They're giving up because the media offers them nothing but negativity and bad advice. A friend of mine was talking to someone they love who was trying something in their broken relationship. And my friend asked them, where'd you get that advice? And they said, Grey's Anatomy. And my friend said to the one she loves, that's a TV show. You can't take advice from TV shows. But that's the world we live in. Right? Ask Oprah what to do. Or Dr. Phil. Or Grey's Anatomy. Or Cosmopolitan. Or their favorite newscaster. And all the newscasters doing is like, we're dead. Right? They need the bread of life. They need Jesus. The only thing that's going to sustain them. Not the bad advice off TV. You know what? Some people talk about nothing but the news. You hear them in the coffee shops. Or some people talk nothing about their favorite TV show that they've been binging on Netflix. Some people talk about nothing but slamming the other people at work. Because they feel a little bit better about themselves. Some people aren't eating to feel better about themselves, so they eat thin. we have to give them Jesus, the bread of life. I used to shy away from giving people Jesus because I didn't want to come across as pushy. And I thought, I'll just listen to their problems. This is when I'm a pastor. Or I wanted them to like me. I didn't want to ruffle their feathers. But now I don't. When the door's open, I say, you need Jesus. It's simple. And they're kind of like jarred a little bit. And I say, well, you're just trying to do this on your own. You need to surrender and take Jesus. He's what you need. Because here's the thing. Why do you think God put you in the storm on a shipwreck? Sometimes Oswald Chambers says God puts you in a situation, and the situation he has you in has nothing to do with you, but everything to do with the other person. And you're in that shipwreck for their benefit. Yeah, you're going through it, and it sucks, and it hurts, but you're in the shipwreck not for your sake, but for their sake. You're the only one that can offer them hope. You got the life preserver. You got Jesus. He's the hero. There's that famous picture of Jesus walking on the water, and there's this great new painting, and if my computer worked, I could have shown you. And it's Jesus grabbing Peter's forearm. Jesus is standing on the water, and Peter's up to here. Right? And because the book of John, in the Greek, says Jesus strolls through storms. It's not a big deal to him. He walks through the water, and he's there to pull us out. And when the centurion listened to Paul and did what Paul said, because Paul was in that shipwreck, it wasn't for his benefit. It was because 275 guys got saved that day because Paul was in that shipwreck. The results of the storm was 275 guys made it to shore. And he ordered them to swim, and the ship fell apart, and they clung to planks, the ones that couldn't swim. And that's exactly what we have to do when we're in a shipwreck, guys. We have to cling to faith. You just got a plank, hang on to it, Jesus will carry you home. Because Jesus is in the middle of the storm with you. And he's with them if they'll reach out to him. You know why people will make it through the shipwreck of this sinking earth? You know why you will? Because Jesus let the storm kill him. He let the storm kill him. We're experiencing the collateral damage. We're on the outskirts of a massive storm. Jesus went right into the heart of it and took the brunt of it on the cross. And because he died, the storm won't kill us. And if they have him, it won't kill them. Christmas is about Jesus entering the fray. He didn't stay out of the way and take it easy when he could have in heaven and just watch the whole ship go down. He could have done that. I mean, it's not his fault. The world just gave him the finger and walked away. But Jesus threw himself headlong into the maelstrom. From the get-go, he entered the life of the poor. By being born as a child of no reputation to a single mom. Wasn't even married yet. And then he was born in a barn. Right away. The storm was trying to kill him from the time he was a toddler. He stood up time and again and took the brunt of the storm on himself. He stood up and defended criminals and prostitutes. And he took the brunt of the storm and judgment on himself and said, leave them alone. And he just offered a helping hand. He took the pounding rain and the wind. And he died for you and your friends to save them from the storm. And yes, the ship has come apart. And there's no fixing this earth. But one day, when it goes down, he's going to save us all and he's going to build us a new boat. And there are not going to be any storms in the ocean. You'll be able to sail the 7 seas. No more problems. You cling to your Christian plank of faith and you hold on to that thing no matter what. And you offer a helping hand to the people next to you in the waves. Because the Christian in the storm clings to faith and tells everyone else, hang on. Jesus is going to get us through this. That's the story of Acts. Amen? Amen. Let's sing a song, Ryan.